The lights in the command room of the UEF Defiance flickered as Captain Jack Walker stared at the message on his screen. His face grew pale. The ship's damage reports scrolled beside the new orders, making what he was reading seem even more impossible. "They can't be serious," he whispered, running a hand through his short gray hair. The Defiance had barely escaped their last battle. Half the engines were dead. The hull had cracks in 3 sections. 22 crew members were in the medical bay. And now Earth Command wanted them to break through a Vorn blockade. Jack pressed the ship-wide comm button. "All senior officers to the command room. Now." 5 minutes later, the doors slid open. First Officer Lisa Miller entered first, her uniform neat despite the chaos of the past week. Behind her came Chief Engineer Tom Reed, his hands still black with engine grease, and Ship Doctor Anna Davis, looking tired after treating wounded crew for 12 hours straight. "Sit down," Jack said, pointing to the chairs around the central table. "We have new orders." The holographic display in the middle of the table lit up, showing a planet with 7 large Vorn warships surrounding it. "This is New Hope Colony," Jack explained. 3 days ago, a plague broke out there. It's killing hundreds each day. They need medical supplies. And the Vorn are blocking help," Lisa said, leaning forward to study the enemy ships. "Why? What do they gain from this?" Jack's jaw tightened. "They claim the colony broke some expansion treaty. They've declared the planet under quarantine." "Quarantine?" Dr. Davis snorted. "They're just letting people die." "That's why we've been ordered to break through," Jack said. "We're the closest UEF ship." Tom laughed without humor. "Captain, we're in no shape for this. The Defiance is barely holding together. Those are battle-class Vorn ships. They'd tear us apart before we got close." "I know," Jack replied quietly. "Command knows too. They're calling it a necessary sacrifice." The room went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. "My brother is on that colony," Jack finally said. "Along with 10,000 other humans. I'm not leaving them to die. But I'm not leading you all to certain death either." He pressed another button, and the display changed to show a small device. "What is that?" Lisa asked, leaning closer. "Project Blacklight," Jack answered. "Classified human tech. It was on this ship for testing when we left Earth." Tom's eyes widened. "I've heard rumors. This is the bioweapon." "Not exactly a weapon," Jack corrected. "It doesn't kill. It targets Vorn biology, specifically their sensory systems. It causes confusion, fear. Their ancestors were prey animals before they evolved intelligence. This triggers those old instincts." Dr. Davis looked troubled. "That's why it's illegal under the blood treaties. The Vorn consider biological manipulation a crime worse than murder." Jack nodded. "Under Vorn law, using this makes us blood criminals. Not just war criminals, something worse in their culture." "But it would get us through the blockade?" Lisa asked. "I believe so," Jack said. "Enough to deliver the medical supplies, at least." Tom was checking something on his tablet. His face grew serious. "Captain, there's more. According to these specs, Blacklight permanently alters certain markers that the Vorn can detect. We'd be marked, not just our ship, but our actual DNA. The Vorn would hunt us forever." Jack stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars streaked by as the damaged Defiance limped through space. "I'm not ordering any of you to do this," he said without turning around. "I'll take a shuttle if I have to. But those colonists need help." Lisa joined him at the window. "How long have we served together, Jack?" 8 years. "Almost 9, he replied. "Then you should know we're not letting you go alone." She looked back at the others. "I'm in." Tom sighed dramatically. "The Defiance would fall apart without me anyway. I'm in." "Someone needs to deliver those medical supplies properly," Dr. Davis added. "Count me in." Jack turned to face his crew, his friends. "Once we do this, there's no going back. We'll be outlaws to both the Vorn and probably Earth too. The treaties are clear. Some laws need breaking, Lisa said simply. Jack nodded, feeling both proud and scared. Thank you. I'll speak to the rest of the crew. Anyone who wants to leave can take the escape pods to the mining station in Sector 7. No questions asked, no marks on their record. 3 hours later, Jack stood in the ship's main hall. All 93 remaining crew members had gathered. Not a single person had taken the escape pods. We've all seen what the Vorn Empire does to planets they want, Jack began. They find excuses, treaties, regulations, quarantines, but it's all about expansion. They want New Hope's resources, and this plague gives them the perfect excuse to let humans die. He activated a screen showing the colony. We'll approach with minimal power. They'll think we're more damaged than we are. When we're in range, we'll activate blacklight and make our run through the gap it creates. What about the colonists? Someone asked. Will this affect them too? Jack shook his head. Blacklight only affects Vorn biology. But be clear, once we use it, we're marked people. The Vorn believe in blood guilt. They'll hunt our families, our bloodlines. A young engineer raised her hand. Sir, I have a sister on Earth. I understand, Jack said softly. Last chance to leave. The engineer straightened her back. My sister would want me to save those colonists, sir. I'm staying. Jack looked at his crew with pride. Prepare for light speed exit in 30 minutes. Battle stations in 2 hours. Today, the Defiance will earn its name. As the crew dispersed, Lisa stayed behind. We're really doing this, she said. Jack nodded. Breaking every law, defying an empire. For the right reasons, she reminded him. Let's hope history remembers it that way, Jack replied. If we survive long enough for there to be a history. The Defiance turned toward New Hope Colony, its damaged hull creaking with the effort. Ahead lay 7 Vorn warships, a desperate colony, and the line between law and justice that they were about to cross. Jack Walker had been a rule follower his entire career. But today, rules would not save his brother or the colonists. Today, the Defiance would defy not just the Vorn, but the very laws that bound the galaxy together. And nothing would ever be the same again. Vorn blockade in visual range, Captain. Jack nodded at Lisa's report and leaned forward in his command chair. On the main screen, 7 massive Vorn ships floated in perfect formation around New Hope Colony. Their ships looked like giant smooth stones with glowing blue lines running across their hulls. Each one was 5 times bigger than the Defiance. All power to forward shields, Jack ordered. Keep us running dark. Tom's voice came through the comm system from the engine room. We're as dark as we can get, Captain. But they'll spot us soon enough. We just need to get close, Jack replied. Dr. Davis, report to the bridge. Minutes later, Anna Davis entered, carrying a small metal case. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed it on the command console. Project Blacklight is ready, she said. Then she lowered her voice. Captain, I've been studying the colony's medical reports. This isn't a natural plague. Jack turned to her. What do you mean? The disease has markers I've seen before in Vorn bioweapons research files. Her eyes were hard. They released this plague themselves. A cold anger filled Jack's chest. They created the problem and blocked the solution. They want the planet, Lisa said, understanding dawning on her face. Kill the humans with disease, then move in after claiming they tried to help. Jack turned back to the view screen. Then we have even more reason to break through. Tom, how close do we need to be for maximum effect with blacklight? 5,000 kilometers should do it, Tom's voice replied. Current distance is 12,000 kilometers, Lisa reported. They've spotted us. Vorn ships are hailing. Ignore them, Jack ordered. All hands, brace for evasive maneuvers. The Defiance shuddered as the first warning shots from the Vorn ships passed near their hull. 9,000 kilometers, Lisa called out. Jack opened the metal case. Inside was a small silver device with a simple red button. It looked too ordinary to be something that would change their lives forever. 7,000 kilometers. The ship rocked violently as a Vorn energy beam grazed their shields. Shields at 60%. Someone shouted. 6,000 kilometers. Another hit. The lights flickered, and emergency alarms began to wail. Shields at 40%. 5,500 kilometers. Jack's finger hovered over the button. Everyone remember, after this, there's no going back. We'll be blood criminals to the Vorn. Better criminals than dead, Lisa replied, gripping her console as another blast hit them. 5,000 kilometers, Captain. Jack pressed the button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the silver device hummed and projected a signal pattern on the small screen, waves of light that pulsed in hypnotic rhythm. On the main view screen, the effect on the Vorn ships was immediate. Their perfect formation broke apart. 2 ships drifted sideways. Another began to spin slowly. It's working, Lisa exclaimed. The Vorn communication channels are filled with confused signals. Full power to engines, Jack ordered. Take us through the gap between those 2 ships. The Defiant surged forward, its damaged engines screaming with the effort. They passed between 2 massive Vorn vessels whose weapons fired wildly into space, missing the human ship entirely. Then a blinding flash lit up the bridge as a stray shot hit them directly. Hull breach on Deck C. Lisa shouted over the alarms. Engineering reports major damage. Jack hit the comm button. Tom, status. No answer came. Tom, respond. The ship lurched sideways as another hit struck them. Jack fought to stay in his chair. We're past the blockade line, Lisa reported, but we took heavy damage. Jack stood up. Get us to the colony. I'm going to engineering. He ran through smoke-filled corridors, passing crew members putting out fires and sealing breaches. When he reached engineering, he found chaos. A support beam had fallen, and 3 crew members were lifting it off a 4th person. It was Tom, his face pale, and his uniform soaked with blood. The reactor coolant system was going to blow, a young engineer explained as Jack knelt beside Tom. He manually locked it down. Tom's eyes fluttered open. Did we make it through? We did, Jack confirmed. Thanks to you. Tom grabbed Jack's arm with surprising strength. Listen, I modified blacklight before we used it. Added a signature. What kind of signature? Jack asked. The Vorn ships we affected. I marked them too. Tom coughed and blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Their own kind will see them as tainted now. Just like us. Before Jack could respond, his comm unit beeped. Captain to the bridge. Urgent. Jack squeezed Tom's shoulder. Get him to medical. He ordered the others, then raced back to the bridge. When he arrived, Lisa pointed at the long-range scanner. A Vorn battle group is changing course to intercept us. At least 20 ships. The comm system crackled to life, and a deep voice filled the bridge. A Vorn face appeared on screen. Gray skin, 4 yellow eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and a mouth filled with small, sharp teeth. Human vessel, the Vorn said in a cold voice. I am High Admiral Kren of the Vorn Empire. You have committed blood sacrilege against our kind. Your DNA is now marked for eternal cleansing. Your bloodlines will be purged. No treaty, no law, no power in this galaxy will save you or your descendants from our vengeance. Jack stepped forward. This is Captain Walker of the UEF Defiance. Your empire created a plague to kill innocent colonists. We're bringing them medicine. If that makes us criminals in your eyes, so be it. Kren's 4 eyes narrowed. You do not understand what you have done, human. This is beyond politics or war. You have defiled our very being. And now you will learn the price. The transmission cut off. Lisa looked at Jack, her face grim. Sir, the Vorn communication channels are strange. Other Vorn factions are demanding explanations from the blockade ships. They're calling them blood-tainted and infected. Jack remembered Tom's words about marking the Vorn ships. "What have we started?" he whispered. The Defiance limped toward New Hope Colony, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from a dozen wounds in its hull. Behind them, a Vorn battle group was coming, not just to stop them, but to erase them from existence. And somewhere in the vastness of space, confused Vorn ships from the blockade were being treated as outcasts by their own kind, marked by the same technology that had turned the crew of the Defiance into the most wanted humans in the galaxy. The Defiance entered New Hope's atmosphere with a trail of fire behind it. Half its engines were dead, and the hull groaned with every small movement. In the command chair, Jack gripped the armrests as the ship shook violently. Landing in 30 seconds, Lisa called out, fighting with the controls. "This won't be pretty, Captain." Jack activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands, brace for rough landing." The colony came into view below them, a collection of white buildings surrounded by farm fields and forests. But something was wrong. Even from the air, Jack could see people lying in the streets. No one was moving to help them. The Defiance hit the ground hard, skidding across an empty field before coming to a stop. Emergency systems activated, putting out small fires that had started during the landing. "Secure the ship," Jack ordered as he stood up. "Dr. Davis, grab your medical team and the supplies. Let's move." 20 minutes later, Jack led a group of crew members toward the colony's main medical center. The streets were eerily quiet except for the sounds of coughing and crying coming from buildings. Bodies lay where they had fallen, too many for the remaining healthy colonists to move. "It's worse than reported," Dr. Davis whispered, her face pale as they walked past a playground where 3 small bodies lay covered with blankets. Jack's heart hammered in his chest. "We need to find my brother." And the colony leader. The medical center was overflowing with sick people. Beds lined the hallways, and medical staff moved slowly between patients, their own faces showing signs of the disease. "Who's in charge here?" Jack called out. A tired-looking doctor approached them. "I'm Dr. Park. Are you?" "From Earth." Jack nodded. "Captain Walker of the UEF Defiance. We broke through the Vorn blockade with medical supplies." Dr. Park's eyes widened. "How did you manage that?" "We'll explain later," Jack said. "First, these supplies need to be distributed, and I'm looking for Bill Walker, my brother." Dr. Park's face fell. "Bill is alive, but you should come with me." He led Jack to a side room while Dr. Davis began organizing the distribution of medicine. On a bed in the corner lay a man who looked like an older version of Jack. His skin had a sickly red color, and his breathing was shallow. "Bill," Jack whispered, moving to his brother's side. Bill's eyes opened slowly. "Jack? Is that really you?" Jack knelt beside the bed. "It's me. We brought medicine. You're going to be okay." Bill shook his head weakly. "You shouldn't have come. The Vorn. They did this to us." "We know," Jack said. Dr. Davis figured it out. "Not just the disease," Bill whispered. "They'd been watching us for months. We found something. In the old mines." Before Jack could ask more questions, Lisa's voice came through his comm unit. "Captain, we've got Vorn scout ships entering the atmosphere. 5 of them." Jack stood up. "I have to go, Bill. But I'll be back." Bill grabbed his arm. "Find James Hill, the colony governor. He has proof of what the Vorn have been doing." Jack squeezed his brother's hand, then ran back to where Dr. Davis was working. "Vorn scouts are coming," he told her. "Keep working on the cure. I'm taking the security team back to the ship." By the time Jack reached the Defiance, Tom was there, his chest bandaged but standing at attention with the rest of the crew. "You should be resting," Jack said. Tom managed a weak smile. "Not when we have company coming, Captain." The ship's sensors showed 5 Vorn scout ships circling the colony. They hadn't attacked yet, but Jack knew it was only a matter of time. "Power up what weapons we have left," he ordered, "and find me Governor James Hill." An hour later, Jack sat in the colony's government building, looking at the evidence Governor Hill had collected. The gray-haired man pointed at screen after screen of data. "We found ancient technology in the mines," Hill explained. "Technology that affects sensory systems, similar to what you used against the Vorn blockade." Jack looked up in surprise. "You know about blacklight?" Hill nodded. "Not by name, but we discovered the principles. That's why the Vorn targeted us. They've been systematically attacking any human colony that gets close to this kind of technology." "But why?" Lisa asked. She had joined them after securing the ship. "Because it's the one thing that threatens their biological supremacy," Hill said. "The Vorn have built their entire empire on the belief that their advanced senses make them superior to all other species. This technology levels the playing field." Jack thought about the Vorn battle group heading their way. "Governor, how many people are left healthy enough to fight?" "Maybe 200, Hill replied grimly. "Everyone else is sick or caring for the sick." Dr. Davis entered the room, looking exhausted but excited. "Captain, I think we have something. We've been studying the blacklight technology, and there are similarities between how it affects Vorn biology and how their plague affects human cells. We might be able to create a counteragent." Jack felt a flicker of hope. "How long?" "Hours, not days," she replied. "But we'll need the colony's atmospheric processors to distribute it planet-wide." Hill looked concerned. "Those same processors could be used to amplify your blacklight signal against the Vorn fleet when they arrive." Jack understood the problem immediately. They could save the colonists from the plague, or they could defend against the coming Vorn attack. Not both. Before he could respond, the building shook as an explosion sounded in the distance. Lisa checked her tablet. "The Vorn scouts are attacking the outer farms." Jack made a quick decision. "Dr. Davis, keep working on the cure. Lisa, come with me back to the Defiance. We need to send a message." "A message?" Lisa asked as they hurried through the streets. "To whom?" "To every human settlement in range," Jack replied. "The Vorn have been waging a secret war against us. It's time everyone knew." Back on the damaged ship, Jack stood in the communication room. Using the last of their power, he recorded a message explaining everything. The Vorn bioweapon, the technology they feared, and how Project Blacklight had allowed one damaged ship to break through their blockade. "This information needs to reach Earth," he told Lisa as the message began transmitting on all frequencies. "The Vorn aren't just enforcing treaties. They're eliminating any human colony that discovers technology that threatens them." Tom entered the room, looking at a scanner. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up the main Vorn battle group. They'll be here in less than 12 hours. Jack looked at his loyal crew, then out the viewport at the colony where thousands of people, including his brother, were fighting to survive. "Then we have 12 hours to prepare our last stand," he said quietly. 11 hours later, Jack stood at the colony's Defense Control Center with Governor Hill, Lisa, and Tom. The large screen in front of them showed 25 Vorn warships entering the planet's orbit. At their center was a massive vessel twice the size of the others. "High Admiral Kren's flagship," Lisa said, pointing at the largest ship. "The Blood Purity." "Fitting name," Tom muttered. Despite his injuries, he had refused to rest. A light flashed on the communication panel. Governor Hill looked at Jack. "They're hailing us." Jack nodded. "Put them through." The screen changed to show High Admiral Kren. His 4 yellow eyes seemed to burn with hatred as he looked at the humans. "Captain Walker," Kren said, his voice deep and cold, "your actions have disturbed the natural order of our galaxy." "Your empire created a plague to kill innocent people," Jack replied. "We brought medicine. Who really disturbed the natural order?" Kren's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. "I offer you terms, human. Surrender yourself and your crew for blood purification, and this colony will be spared." Everyone in the room knew what blood purification meant: execution. "And if we refuse?" Jack asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then we will cleanse this planet entirely," Kren said simply. You have 1 hour to decide. The screen went blank. He's lying, Lisa said immediately. Even if we surrender, they'll still destroy the colony. I know, Jack replied. But it gives us an hour to finalize our plans. He turned to Dr. Davis, who had just entered the room. How's the cure coming? We've got it, she said, her eyes bright with hope despite her exhaustion. The counteragent works. We've tested it on 30 patients, including your brother. They're already showing improvement. For the first time in days, Jack felt a moment of real hope. Can we distribute it planet-wide? Yes, through the atmospheric processors, Davis confirmed. But it will take all their power for about 40 minutes to completely cover the colony. Tom looked troubled. That's the same system we need to amplify our blacklight signal against the Vorn fleet. The room went quiet as everyone understood the impossible choice they faced. Use the processors to cure the colonists, leaving them defenseless against the Vorn attack, or use them as a weapon and let more colonists die from the plague. Lisa studied the defense systems display. What if we run them in sequence? Cure distribution first, then reconfigure for blacklight. Governor Hill shook his head. The Vorn won't wait. The moment they detect us using the processors, they'll attack. Then we need to buy time, Jack decided. The Defiance will engage the Vorn ships while the processors distribute the cure. Tom stared at him. Captain, the Defiance can barely fly, let alone fight 25 Vorn warships. We don't need to win, Jack said quietly. We just need to distract them long enough for the cure to spread. No one spoke for a moment. They all understood what Jack was suggesting. A suicide mission. I'll go with you, Lisa said firmly. Me too, Tom added. Jack shook his head. Tom, you're needed here to reconfigure the processors after the cure distribution. And Lisa, I need you to coordinate the colony's defenses. Before anyone could argue further, the building shook violently. Alarms sounded throughout the colony. They're not waiting an hour, Governor Hill said, checking the sensors. They've started bombing the outer areas. Then we move now, Jack ordered. Dr. Davis, start the cure distribution. Tom, get ready to reconfigure the processors the moment it's done. Lisa, get our remaining security team to the Defiance. As everyone rushed to their positions, Jack made a quick stop at the medical center. His brother Bill was sitting up in bed, his skin already looking less red. The cure is working, Bill said, his voice stronger than before. Jack squeezed his shoulder. Good, because I need a favor. 20 minutes later, Jack stood on the bridge of the Defiance. Around him, a skeleton crew of 15 volunteers manned the stations. Through the view screen, he could see the Vorn ships firing on the colony. All weapons online, reported a young officer. What little we have left. Engines at 30%, called another. It's the best we can do, Captain. Jack took his seat in the command chair. That's all we need. Take us up. The damaged ship rose shakily from the colony surface, its hull creaking with the effort. As soon as they cleared the atmosphere, the Vorn ships noticed them. We're being targeted, the weapons officer called out. Multiple ships locking on. Evasive maneuvers, Jack ordered. Target Kren's flagship. The Defiance fired its remaining weapons at the massive Vorn vessel. The shots barely scratched its hull, but achieved what Jack wanted. Attention. They're following us. Lisa's voice came through the comm. The bombing of the colony has stopped. Cure distribution is at 60%. The ship rocked violently as Vorn energy beams struck their already damaged hull. Shields failing. Hull breach on Deck B. Weapons systems offline. The reports came in one after another as the Defiance took hit after hit. Jack held tight to his chair as the ship spun from a particularly powerful blast. How much longer for the cure? He asked over the comm. 10 more minutes, Davis replied. We're at 80% coverage. Just then, a blinding beam cut through the bridge. 2 crew members were thrown across the room. A support beam crashed down, narrowly missing Jack. We're not going to last 10 minutes, the engineer reported grimly. Core systems are failing. Jack looked at his brave crew, then at the Vorn ships surrounding them. They had drawn most of the fleet away from the colony, but Kren's flagship remained in position to strike. "Lisa," Jack called over the comm. "Is Tom ready to reconfigure the processors for blacklight?" "Not yet," she replied. "The cure needs 5 more minutes." The ship rocked again, and emergency lights flashed red. The end was coming. Then Jack's comm unit lit up with a private channel. It was Bill. "Jack, I'm at the experimental defense platform. The one we found in the mines." Jack's eyes widened. "The ancient tech, but you're still recovering." "Not anymore," Bill replied. "Your doctor's cure worked wonders. And it's time I did my part." "What are you planning?" Jack asked, though he already feared the answer. "This platform has a pulse system," Bill explained. "It can disrupt Vorn ships for a short time. Just enough for you to get away, or for Tom to reconfigure the processors." "Bill, wait." But it was too late. Through the view screen, Jack saw a massive energy wave expand from the colony, washing over the Vorn ships. One by one, their lights flickered and went out. "Vorn fleet disabled," the sensor officer reported with amazement. "But it's temporary. Maybe 3 minutes." Jack hit the comm button. "Tom, reconfigure the processors now. Lisa, get everyone to shelter." "Bill, respond." There was no answer from his brother. As the Defiance drifted in space, surrounded by temporarily disabled Vorn ships, Jack knew that his brother had likely sacrificed himself to give them this chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. "Get everyone off the ship," Jack ordered over the ship-wide comm. "Escape pods, now." The remaining crew members looked at him in confusion. "Captain," his weapons officer asked. "That's an order," Jack said firmly. "I'm staying to pilot the Defiance for one final mission. The rest of you are needed on the colony." One by one, the crew reluctantly left the bridge. Jack sat alone in his command chair, watching the Vorn ships on the view screen. They were already showing signs of recovering from Bill's pulse weapon. "Captain, the atmospheric processors are being reconfigured for blacklight." Tom's voice came through the comm. 2 minutes until ready." "Good," Jack replied, "because the Vorn ships are waking up." As the last escape pod left the Defiance, Jack took manual control of the damaged ship. The plan had formed in his mind the moment he saw Bill's pulse disable the Vorn fleet. There was only one way to end this. "Lisa, status on colony defenses?" he asked. "Minimal," she replied. "But the cure has been distributed. People are already recovering. What are you planning, Jack?" Jack didn't answer directly. "Is there any word from Bill?" There was a pause. "I'm sorry, Jack. The defense platform overloaded. He didn't make it." Jack closed his eyes for a moment, letting the grief wash over him. Then he focused on the task ahead. "Tom, I need blacklight at maximum power. Can you transfer control to the Defiance?" "Yes, but—" Tom began. "Do it," Jack interrupted. "And both of you, make sure my message reaches Earth. They need to know everything." Before either could respond, a new message came through. This one from an unexpected source. Jack read it twice, not believing what he was seeing. "Captain," Lisa's voice was urgent. "The Vorn ships are powering up their weapons again. Whatever you're planning, do it now." Jack opened a channel to Kren's flagship. The Vorn admiral's face appeared on screen, his 4 eyes narrowed with hatred. "Your time is up, human," Kren said. "You have defied our laws, tainted our blood, and now you will." "You're wrong, Admiral," Jack interrupted. "About many things, but mainly about being alone in your beliefs." Jack transferred the message he'd just received to Kren's ship. The Vorn's expression changed from anger to shock. "This is impossible," Kren whispered. "Earth received our broadcast," Jack explained. "They've declared war on the Vorn Empire. Human fleets are already heading this way, all equipped with modified blacklight technology." Kren's face twisted with rage. It changes nothing. You will not live to see them arrive. Probably not, Jack agreed. But neither will you. He closed the channel and activated the ship's engines. The Defiance moved forward, directly toward Kren's flagship. Jack, what are you doing? Lisa's voice was panicked. The right thing, he replied calmly. Tom, is Blacklight ready? Yes, Captain. Transferred to your controls. But sir, if you activate it at close range combined with a reactor overload. I know, Jack said. It will create a unique radiation signature that will permanently mark all Vorn DNA in the system. They'll all be blood-tainted by their own laws. Jack could almost see Lisa and Tom exchanging looks of horror and understanding. What he was planning would mean his death, but it would also mean that every Vorn in the fleet would be marked as impure forever. There has to be another way, Lisa pleaded. There isn't, Jack said. And this isn't just about revenge. Look at your sensors. There was a pause, then Lisa gasped. Some of the Vorn ships, they're firing on each other. The ships we marked with blacklight during our blockade run, Jack explained. Tom's modification worked. They'd been cast out by their own kind, and now they're fighting back. The Vorn Empire is fracturing from within. The Defiance continued its collision course with Kren's flagship. Weapons fire from both Vorn factions lit up space around the human ship, but Jack flew straight through it. Jack, Tom's voice was quiet. It's been an honor serving with you. The honor was mine, Jack replied. Take care of the colony. And make sure my brother's sacrifice isn't forgotten. As the Defiance approached Kren's massive ship, Jack activated blacklight at maximum power and set the reactor to overload. Warning alarms blared around him, but he ignored them. On his screen, he could see escape pods launching from some of the Vorn ships, crews abandoning their posts as civil war erupted in their fleet. Kren's flagship fired desperately at the approaching human ship, but it was too late. For Bill, Jack whispered as he pressed the final button. The Defiance crashed into Kren's flagship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a blinding light erupted as the reactor and blacklight system detonated together. The explosion engulfed both ships and spread outward, washing over the entire Vorn fleet with its unique radiation. 3 months later, Lisa stood with Tom and Dr. Davis at a simple stone memorial in the center of New Hope Colony. The inscription read, "To the crew of the Defiance, who broke every law to save our blood, and in doing so, changed the stars." Governor Hill approached them, holding a data tablet. "News from Earth," he said. "The war is turning in humanity's favor. Vorn society is breaking apart over the blood taint issue. Half their fleet refuses to fight alongside impure commanders." "And the technology?" Davis asked. "Earth scientists have reverse-engineered the Vorn bioweapons and developed permanent countermeasures based on your work," Hill replied. "The very technology that made us criminals has become our salvation." Lisa touched the memorial stone gently. Jack would be pleased. Tom nodded. And Bill, too. They turned to watch a group of children playing nearby. Children who would have died from the Vorn plague, if not for the Defiance and its crew. In the distance, a new settlement was being built, named Walker in honor of the brothers who gave their lives. High above them, in orbit around New Hope, a new class of human warships gathered. They had arrived too late to save the Defiance, but in time to secure the colony and push back the remaining Vorn forces. Each ship bore a name inspired by the Defiance and its crew. The first fleet built specifically to challenge the biological supremacy that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. On the flagship's hull, large letters spelled out its name, UEF Walker's Defiance. The blood laws of the Vorn had marked humans as criminals. But in the end, it was Vorn blood that remembered the lesson. Never underestimate what humans will do to protect their own. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the message of the Defiance continued to spread. Humanity would no longer bow to alien laws that threatened their survival. They would defy every blood and law that stood in their way. That was their nature. That was their strength. That was their defiance. Admiral James Wilson leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling of his small office at Earth Defense Command. The walls around him were covered with rejection letters and technical reports. All of them said the same thing. His battleship design was impossible. Unfeasible power requirements. Structure cannot withstand proposed weapon systems. Violates 3 known laws of physics. The latest rejection, from the Combined Earth Military Engineering Court, sat on his desk. Wilson picked it up and read the conclusion again. While Admiral Wilson's theoretical Thunderchild design shows creative thinking, it remains physically impossible to construct with current or projected technology. The power core alone would require an energy source that simply cannot exist. Wilson tossed the report back onto his desk and rubbed his tired eyes. 30 years in the Earth Defense Fleet, and all he had to show for it was a reputation as a dreamer who had lost touch with reality. Outside his window, the gleaming towers of New Geneva sparkled in the morning sun. It all looked so peaceful. The civilians down there had no idea how vulnerable they really were. The door chime interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," Wilson called. The door slid open to reveal Captain Thomas Reed, his former student, and one of the few officers who still treated him with genuine respect. Reed's uniform was crisp as always, but his face looked drawn with worry. "Admiral," Reed said, stepping inside and letting the door close behind him. "Sorry to disturb you, but I thought you should hear this directly from me." Wilson gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit down, Tom. What's happened?" Reed sat but perched on the edge of the seat. "The Crawl have broken through the outer defense line at Proxima Centauri. All 3 station outposts have gone silent. The 4th Fleet engaged them, but was..." He paused. "The 4th Fleet is gone, sir." Wilson's blood went cold. The entire fleet. Admiral Chen's flagship, too. All of it. The Crawl have developed some new weapon system. Based on the fragmentary data we received, they can somehow disrupt our shield harmonics from a distance we never thought possible. Our ships were defenseless. "How long?" Wilson asked, his mind already calculating distances and fleet movements. "Intelligence gives us 3 weeks before their main force reaches Earth's solar system. Maybe a month before they reach Earth itself." Wilson stood up and walked to his window. 3 weeks. The Earth Defense Council would be panicking right now, scrambling existing ships into defensive formations that would be just as vulnerable as the 4th Fleet had been. "The conventional response won't work," Wilson said quietly. "We need something they haven't seen before, something they can't predict." Reed nodded. "That's why I'm here, sir. I've always believed in your ideas, even when others didn't. If there was ever a time for an unconventional approach." Wilson turned back from the window, a new resolve hardening in his eyes. "Tom, what I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." Wilson entered a code into his desk terminal. The ordinary-looking wall behind him slid open to reveal a hidden room. He motioned for Reed to follow him inside. The small chamber contained a 3-dimensional holographic projector in the center. Wilson activated it, and a detailed schematic of a massive battleship appeared, rotating slowly in the air before them. Reed's eyes widened. "Is that..." "The Thunderchild," Wilson confirmed. "Not just designs anymore, Tom. I've been building it." "That's how." "The Defense Council rejected the funding years ago." Wilson smiled grimly. "I have friends in private industry who believe in being prepared. We've been constructing it in sections within an asteroid in the belt. The official records show it as a mining operation." Reed stared at the hologram in disbelief. The ship was unlike anything in Earth's fleet, angular where most ships were smooth, with strange protrusions and technology configurations that defied conventional engineering principles. "But sir, even if you've managed to build the hull and infrastructure, what about the power core? Every engineer in the system said it was theoretically impossible." Wilson touched the terminal, and the hologram zoomed in to show the central core of the ship, a spherical chamber surrounded by concentric rings of unknown technology. "That's where Dr. Anna Foster comes in," Wilson said. "Have you heard of her?" Reed shook his head. "She was a theoretical physicist at Europa University until 3 years ago. Then she seemingly disappeared from academic circles. The truth is, she's been working with me. She developed a way to tap into what she calls dimensional bleed, drawing power from parallel dimensional spaces." Reed looked skeptical. "That sounds like science fiction." "Sir." "So did splitting the atom, once," Wilson replied. 2 days ago, we successfully tested the core at 20% capacity. It generated more power than the entire North American power grid." Reed sat down heavily on a nearby stool. "So the Thunderchild is real. It exists. It exists, but it's untested in combat. The weapons systems are installed but not fully calibrated. Some of the defensive systems are still theoretical." Wilson looked Reed directly in the eyes. "But it's the only chance we have. The Crawl have never seen anything like it. Does the Defense Council know?" Wilson shook his head. "No, and they won't, not until we present them with a fully operational battleship. They'd shut us down if they knew we'd gone this far on our own." "Us?" Reed asked. "I need a crew, Tom. A small, trusted group who can think outside the box and are willing to take enormous risks. I need you to captain her." Reed stood up straighter. "Me? But you're the one who designed her. You should." "I'm too old to captain a ship in combat," Wilson interrupted. "I'll be aboard as admiral. But I need you on the bridge. There's no one I trust more." Through the window behind them, sirens began to wail across the city. The public announcement was beginning. Earth was now officially at war. Wilson looked at the hologram of his impossible ship and then back at Reed. "We launch in 48 hours. I need your answer now, Captain." Reed's face showed fear, uncertainty, and then determination. He stood straight and saluted. "I'm with you, Admiral. When do we start assembling the crew?" Wilson turned off the hologram, the massive shape of the Thunderchild vanishing into darkness. "Now," he said. "We start now." The command center of Earth Defense Headquarters buzzed with frantic activity. Officers rushed between stations, their faces pale with tension. On the main screen, red dots representing Crawl warships moved steadily toward Earth's solar system, swallowing the blue dots of Earth's defensive fleet one by one. General Adams clenched his fist on the central table. "We've lost contact with the 7th Fleet at Saturn's orbit. The Crawl broke through them like they weren't even there." The Defense Council members exchanged grim looks. Earth's most advanced ships, their best technology, their bravest crews, all falling before the Crawl advance. The alien armada would reach Earth within days. "What about the experimental shield modifications?" asked one counselor. "Failed," Adams replied flatly. "The Crawl adapted within minutes." In the back of the room, Admiral Wilson stood silently watching the disaster unfold. He checked his watch. It was time. "General," Wilson said, stepping forward, "I request permission to deploy a new asset." Adams looked up with irritation. "What new asset? Every ship we have is already engaged." Wilson met his gaze steadily. "Not every ship." Captain Thomas Reed stood in the hidden dock carved within asteroid MX-117, staring up at the massive shape of the Thunderchild. Workers scurried around the dock, making final preparations. The ship loomed above them, dark, angular, and intimidating. "Beautiful, isn't she?" came a voice beside him. Reed turned to see Dr. Anna Foster, the physicist responsible for the ship's impossible power core. Her eyes reflected the dim blue glow from the ship's external lights. "Beautiful and terrifying," Reed admitted. "Will she actually work?" Foster smiled thinly. "The core is stable at 60% capacity. That's more than enough to power all primary systems. Beyond that," she shrugged, "we're in uncharted territory." A commotion at the dock entrance drew their attention. Admiral Wilson entered, followed by a group of about 20 people in various uniforms and civilian clothes. "Your crew," Foster said quietly. "Good luck, Captain." She walked away as Wilson approached with the group. "Captain Reed," Wilson said formally. "May I present your volunteer crew?" Reed looked over the small group. Far too few to properly man a battleship of the Thunderchild's size, but quality would have to overcome quantity. Wilson began the introductions. Lieutenant Mark Davis, weapons specialist, former instructor at the Luna Academy until the Crawl destroyed the colony where his family lived. A hard-faced man with close-cropped hair nodded curtly. Chief Engineer Olivia Grant. She helped design the cooling systems for the main reactor. A tall woman with calloused hands and intelligent eyes stepped forward. "Captain, the engine room is ready. But I must warn you, we've never tested the power systems under combat conditions." "None of this has been tested under combat conditions," Wilson replied grimly. "That's why we're all here." The introductions continued. Navigator Paul Jones, a civilian pilot with a reputation for flying routes others called suicide. Communications Specialist Robert Turner, discharged from regular service for creative interpretation of protocols. Dr. Lisa Martinez, a military surgeon with experience treating plasma burns, and a dozen others, scientists, engineers, and soldiers, all volunteers, all knowing this mission might be a one-way trip. "This is everyone?" Reed asked when Wilson finished. "Everyone willing to gamble their lives on an impossible ship," Wilson confirmed. "We'll be severely understaffed. Most of you will pull double shifts and duties outside your specialties." No one complained. No one walked away. Wilson looked at his watch again. Earth Defense Command has just been informed of our existence. They're desperate enough not to ask too many questions. We launch in 30 minutes. The bridge of the Thunderchild hummed with nervous energy as the crew took their stations. Unlike the polished, ergonomic bridges of standard Earth vessels, this one was utilitarian and crowded with experimental interfaces. Reed settled into the captain's chair, feeling its unfamiliar contours. "Status report," he ordered. Navigator Jones swiveled from his station. "All moorings cleared. Asteroid dock doors opening now." Through the forward viewport, Reed watched as the massive stone doors slowly parted, revealing the star-filled blackness of space. Lieutenant Davis at Weapons shook his head in wonder. "I still don't understand how half these systems are supposed to function. The targeting algorithms alone violate Standard." "Standard won't save Earth," Reed interrupted. "Is Weapons Control responding?" Davis checked his console. "Yes, sir. All weapons systems show green, though I can't guarantee accuracy on the first volley." "Engineer Grant, how's our power?" Grant's voice came through the comm from the engine room. "Core is stable at 40%, Captain. I can give you more if needed, but Dr. Foster recommends we stay below 60% until we're sure the containment fields hold under stress." Reed nodded. "Understood. Communications, any word from Earth Defense?" Turner touched his earpiece. "They've cleared us for immediate launch, sir. General Adams sends, and I quote, 'Godspeed, you crazy bastards.'" A hint of a smile touched Reed's lips. "Navigation, take us out. 1/4 thrust until we clear the asteroid field." "Aye, Captain." The Thunderchild dropped out of its acceleration run at the edge of the Jupiter Defense Zone, where once a proud fleet of Earth, the lead crawl vessels fired. Brilliant beams of destructive energy streaked across space toward the Thunderchild. The bridge crew tensed, bracing for impact. The beams struck the shimmering field and disappeared. The shield pulsed brighter for a moment, rippling with absorbed power. In engineering, Dr. Foster watched her monitors with scientific fascination. Power levels increasing by 12%. Core stability holding. The absorption field is working perfectly. On the bridge, Davis stared at his readings in disbelief. No damage. Shields at 100%, and strengthening. The crawl fired again, a more concentrated barrage. Again, the energy was absorbed, causing the shields to glow brighter. "They're confused," Turner reported, monitoring the crawl communications. "Their targeting systems show direct hits, but they can't explain why we're not damaged." Reed allowed himself a small smile. "Let's show them what else this impossible ship can do." "Lieutenant Davis, target their lead vessel with the phase disruptors." Davis's hands moved over his console, activating weapon systems unlike any Earth had deployed before. Target locked. "But sir, they have shields too." Wilson nodded. "The phase disruptors operate in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their shields exist in normal space. Our weapons fire through spaces between." "Firing," Davis announced. From the Thunderchild's angular hull, pulses of energy that seemed to bend light around them launched toward the lead crawl ship. When they reached the alien vessel, they simply passed through its shields as if they weren't there, striking the hull directly. The crawl ship shuddered, internal explosions visible through its viewport. Its power systems flickered and died. Silence fell on the Thunderchild's bridge, broken only by the beeping of sensors. "Direct hit," Davis said, his voice barely above a whisper. Their shields didn't stop it at all. The crawl responded immediately, multiple ships firing simultaneously, while others began to maneuver to surround the Earth vessel. "Evasive action," Reed ordered. "Let's not get cocky. We still don't know this ship's limitations." The Thunderchild responded smoothly, its unconventional drive allowing maneuvers that would tear apart a normal ship. More crawl weapons fire was absorbed by the shields, and with each burst, the power readings increased. "We're up to 70% power now," Grant reported from engineering, her voice tense. "Dr. Foster says we're approaching untested levels." Reed glanced at Wilson. "Recommendations, Admiral. Use the power while we have it. Hit them hard, then withdraw. Make them afraid." Reed nodded. "Target 3 more vessels and fire at will, Lieutenant. Navigator, prepare an escape vector." The Thunderchild's weapons lashed out again, bypassing crawl defenses and causing devastating damage. 2 smaller vessels exploded outright, while a larger one listed in space, venting atmosphere. The crawl formation broke, their perfect coordination suddenly disrupted. Some vessels accelerated toward the Thunderchild, while others pulled back to regroup. "They're adapting," Wilson warned. "That's what makes them so dangerous." Reed watched the tactical display. "All weapons, continuous fire. Navigator, take us through their formation at maximum speed, then execute the withdrawal plan." The Thunderchild surged forward, weapons blazing. It cut through the crawl formation like a knife, leaving damaged and destroyed ships in its wake. The absorption shields continued to drink in enemy fire, though Foster's warnings from engineering grew more urgent as power levels approached 80%. As they reached the other side of the crawl formation, Reed gave the order. "Execute withdrawal plan now." The Thunderchild's engines flared brilliantly, and the ship accelerated away at speeds no Earth vessel had achieved before. The remaining crawl ships attempted pursuit but quickly fell behind. On the bridge, the tension eased slightly as the distance between them and the crawl increased. "We did it," Davis said, disbelief in his voice. "We actually hit them and got away." Wilson's expression remained grave. "We surprised them. That advantage won't last. They'll analyze what happened and adapt their tactics." Reed nodded. "But we gained something even more valuable than a tactical victory." "What's that, Captain?" asked Navigator Jones. Reed looked at the data showing the crawl fleet reorganizing, their pursuit abandoned for now. "Time," he answered. "We've given Earth time. And just as importantly," he gestured to the screen where the crawl were clearly regrouping rather than continuing their advance. "For the first time since this war began, we've made the crawl afraid." The temporary command center on Mars Colony buzzed with a new energy. Officers moved with purpose rather than panic. On the main tactical display, the crawl fleet had slowed its advance toward Earth, regrouping after their unexpected encounter with the Thunderchild. General Adams studied the latest intelligence reports with a frown. They're calling in reinforcements. Our scouts report at least 30 more warships joining their main fleet. Admiral Wilson nodded grimly. They won't underestimate us again. And they're bringing their flagship. The room fell silent. Everyone had heard of the Kraul flagship, World Eater, a massive vessel twice the size of anything humanity had ever built. It had never been defeated in battle. Can your ship handle that? Adams asked, skepticism clear in his voice despite the Thunderchild's initial success. Wilson met his gaze. We're about to find out. In the Thunderchild's engine room, Dr. Foster and Chief Engineer Grant worked frantically to stabilize the experimental core. The battle against the Kraul advance force had pushed the power systems beyond their tested limits. The dimensional bleed is increasing, Foster said, pointing to fluctuating readings on her monitor. The more energy we absorb, the more unstable the containment field becomes. Grant wiped sweat from her forehead. Can we reinforce it? Not without materials we don't have. Foster's face was grim. The core can handle one more major battle, maybe. After that. She left the sentence unfinished. They both knew what failure of the dimensional core would mean. An explosion that would tear a hole through space itself. On the bridge, Captain Reed studied the tactical projections. The Kraul reinforcements had arrived, forming a new battle group centered around their flagship. The World Eater lived up to its name, a massive dark vessel that seemed to devour the light around it. They're moving again, Navigator Jones reported. Current course will bring them to Earth orbit in 18 hours. Reed nodded. And us. Repairs are at 90% completion. We can intercept them near the Mars defense perimeter in 4 hours. Reed turned to Wilson. What's our strategy, Admiral? We hurt them before, but their flagship changes everything. Wilson's face was carved with fatigue and worry. We need to speak with Dr. Foster first. When Foster arrived on the bridge, her expression told them everything before she spoke. The core is stable for now, but the absorption shield has changed its properties. Every time it absorbs energy, the dimensional bleed increases. If we take too many hits in the next battle. How many is too many? Reed asked. Foster shook her head. Impossible to calculate precisely. But if the core reaches 95% capacity, containment will fail. Wilson leaned forward. And if we deliberately pushed it beyond containment? As a weapon, the bridge went silent. Foster's eyes widened slightly. The resulting dimensional rupture would destroy everything within several thousand kilometers, possibly much more, including the World Eater. Foster nodded slowly. Yes, but also the Thunderchild and everyone aboard. Reed exchanged a glance with Wilson. They were discussing a suicide mission. There's one more system we haven't tested yet, Wilson said after a moment. The tactical jump drive. Lieutenant Davis looked up from his weapons station. Jump drive. I thought we had conventional engines. The Thunderchild has both, Wilson explained. The jump drive is designed to move the ship instantaneously from one point in space to another without crossing the distance between. That's impossible. Yes, we know. Wilson's smile was thin. Dr. Foster's dimensional technology again. The drive creates a momentary tunnel between 2 points in spacetime. It's extremely experimental, Foster warned. We only managed 2 successful tests at very short ranges. The power requirements are enormous, and each jump increases core instability. Reed considered this new information. If it works, we could appear anywhere in the battle instantly, hit them before they can react, then jump away. Exactly, Wilson said. But we'd need to coordinate perfectly, each department working in absolute harmony. Reed looked around at his crew. These volunteers who had risked everything on an impossible ship. What do you think? Can we do this? One by one, they nodded. Then let's make a plan. 4 hours later, The Thunderchild waited in the shadow of Mars' moon Phobos. Before them, the massive crawl fleet approached in perfect formation, the World Eater at its center. "They're scanning for us," Turner reported from communications, "but our signature dampeners are working. They don't see us yet." Reed took a deep breath. All stations report. One by one, each section confirmed readiness. In engineering, Foster and Grant stood by the core controls, ready to channel power where needed. "Remember," Reed said to his crew, "quick strikes only. Hit and jump before they can concentrate fire on us. No heroics." Wilson stood beside Reed's chair. "The moment they detect us, they'll try to lock us down with their suppression fields. Don't give them the chance." Reed nodded. "Weapons hot. Jump drive ready. Let's begin." He leaned forward. "Execute jump one." The bridge lights dimmed momentarily as massive power flowed to the jump drive. Space seemed to bend around the ship, and suddenly they were somewhere else, directly behind a crawl cruiser. "Fire," Reed ordered. The Thunderchild's weapons lashed out, tearing through the unprepared cruiser before it could raise shields. As alarms began to sound throughout the crawl fleet, Reed gave his next order. "Jump 2." Again, the ship vanished, reappearing above the crawl formation. More weapons fire, more destruction. The crawl responded quickly, energy weapons stabbing upward, but the Thunderchild was already gone. "Power at 78% and climbing," Foster reported after the third jump. "Core temperature increasing." The Thunderchild appeared and disappeared across the battlefield like a ghost, striking and vanishing before the crawl could respond effectively. 6 enemy ships destroyed, then 8, then 12. But the World Eater remained untouched, protected by layers of smaller vessels. "They're adapting," Davis warned after their 6th jump, "starting to predict our appearance points." As if to emphasize his words, the Thunderchild materialized after Jump 7 directly in the path of concentrated fire from 3 crawl cruisers. The absorption shields flared brilliantly as they drank in the energy. "Power spike." Foster's voice was tight with alarm. 85%, and rising quickly. "Jump now," Reed ordered. The ship vanished again, but not before taking more hits. When they reappeared, damage reports flooded in from multiple sections. "Hull breach on Deck 4, Turner reported. "Emergency containment holding." Reed wiped blood from a cut on his forehead, where he'd struck the console during the attack. "Status of the World Eater." "It's changing course," Jones reported with sudden alarm. "Breaking formation and accelerating toward Earth. They're making a run directly for Earth while their other ships engage us." Wilson grabbed the tactical console. "They figured out our weakness. They know we can't be everywhere at once." Reed studied the tactical display. The World Eater was indeed pulling away, surrounded by a protective screen of escorts. Meanwhile, the remaining crawl vessels were spreading out, making it impossible for the Thunderchild to engage them all. "Core at 88%, Foster reported. 2, maybe 3 more jumps before containment becomes critical." Reed looked at Wilson, the question unspoken between them. Wilson nodded slowly. "We have no choice. Set course to intercept the World Eater." "Sir," Davis said hesitantly, "even with our weapons, the World Eater's defenses are too strong for a conventional attack." "I know," Wilson replied quietly. "That's why we're not making a conventional attack." Understanding dawned on the bridge crew's faces. This would be their final jump. Reed straightened in his chair. "Prepare evacuation protocols for non-essential personnel. Engineer Grant, begin core destabilization procedures." As the orders were carried out, Reed looked at the image of the World Eater on the main screen. The massive vessel that had destroyed countless worlds was now heading toward Earth, carrying enough firepower to end human civilization. "One ship against their flagship," Reed said softly, "just like when we started." Wilson placed a hand on his shoulder. "They said this battleship was impossible, Captain. Let's show them just how impossible we can be." Alarms blared throughout the Thunderchild as crew members rushed to evacuation stations. The ship limped through space, its hull scored with damage from multiple crawl attacks. In engineering, Dr. Foster watched grimly as the core's containment field fluctuated. The readout showed 91% power, dangerously close to the critical threshold. Final stabilization complete, she reported to the bridge. The core will hold for approximately 12 minutes once I remove the safety protocols. Understood. Captain Reed's voice replied over the comm. Begin evacuation of your section. Foster exchanged a glance with Chief Engineer Grant. You should go, she said quietly. Grant shook her head. Someone needs to monitor the core until the last moment. 2 sets of hands are better than 1. On the bridge, Reed watched the evacuation progress on his display. 3 escape shuttles had already launched, carrying most of the crew to relative safety. The remaining officers at their stations were those who had volunteered to stay until the final jump. The World Eater has entered Earth's defensive perimeter, Navigator Jones reported. Earth's remaining ships are engaging. But he left the sentence unfinished. Everyone knew Earth's conventional fleet stood no chance against the Crawl flagship. Admiral Wilson stood beside Reed's chair, his face set with determination. Distance to target. 20,000 kilometers in closing, Jones replied. We can make the jump anytime. Reed nodded. Lieutenant Davis, status of weapons. Phase disruptors are offline, Davis reported from tactical. Conventional weapons at 30%. Not that they'll matter much against the World Eater's shields. They don't need to, Wilson said. The core will do the real damage. Reed opened the shipwide channel. All remaining crew, this is Captain Reed. Final jump will commence in 2 minutes. Proceed to emergency stations immediately. He paused. It has been my honor to serve with each of you. He closed the channel and looked at Wilson. Admiral, you should take the last shuttle. Wilson shook his head. This ship was my dream, Tom. I'll see it through to the end. Reed didn't argue. Instead, he turned to the bridge crew. Davis, Turner, Jones, the shuttle bay. That's an order. The 3 officers hesitated, then saluted. As they filed off the bridge, Turner stopped at the door. Earth will know what you did here today, sir. Both of you. When they were gone, Reed and Wilson were alone on the bridge. Through the view screen, they could see the distant shape of Earth, blue and green and beautiful against the blackness of space. Closer, the massive form of the World Eater moved inexorably toward it, its escorts fending off the last desperate attacks from Earth's defenders. Core at 93%. Foster's voice reported from engineering. Safety protocols disengage. Ready for final jump on your command. Reed settled into the captain's chair one last time. Plot jump coordinates directly inside the World Eater's shield perimeter, as close to their core as possible. Coordinates set, Foster confirmed. Captain, it's been an honor working on this project. The honor was ours, Doctor, Wilson replied. Your impossible science is about to save Earth. Reed's hand hovered over the jump control. Initiate final jump in 3, 2, 1. He pressed the control, and the Thunderchild vanished from normal space. For a brief, disorienting moment, the ship existed in a dimensional corridor between points in spacetime. Then, with a violent shudder, it rematerialized, directly alongside the World Eater, inside the massive ship's defensive shields. Alarms screamed as proximity warnings activated. Through the view screen, they could see the dark hull of the Crawl flagship filling their view, so close they could make out individual weapon emplacements and hull plates. Core at 96%. Foster's voice was tight with tension. Containment failing. Reed activated the engines, pushing the Thunderchild directly against the World Eater's hull. Foster, Grant, get to the emergency pods now. Too late for that, Captain, Grant replied calmly. We'll make sure the core does its job. On the Crawl flagship, confusion reigned. Their sensors had not detected the Earth vessel until it was already inside their shields. Weapons that had been firing outward at Earth's defenders couldn't be brought to bear on the threat, now attached to their hull like a parasite. Reed looked at Wilson. "I guess we really built an impossible ship after all." Wilson smiled sadly. "Not impossible, just ahead of its time." The core readout flashed red as it passed 98%. The ship shuddered as dimensional energy began to leak from containment. "For Earth," Reed said quietly. "For all of us," Wilson agreed. The core breach began as a small ripple in reality, a point where the barrier between dimensions grew thin and then tore. The Thunderchild's hull glowed with strange energies that defied the normal laws of physics. These energies spread quickly to the World Eater's hull, creating patterns of light that raced across the massive ship's surface. In the World Eater's command center, the Krall Supreme Commander watched in disbelief as reality itself seemed to bend around the human vessel. His technicians reported phenomena they couldn't explain: space folding in on itself, energy readings beyond their instruments' capacity to measure. For one brief moment, both ships existed partially in normal space and partially in the dimensional void that Dr. Foster's technology had tapped into. Then, with a silent flash that somehow echoed across space, both vessels vanished. Where the World Eater and the Thunderchild had been, a strange dimensional rift pulsed briefly before collapsing in on itself. A shockwave of exotic particles spread outward, washing harmlessly over Earth's remaining ships. 3 months later, in a solemn ceremony at Earth Defense Headquarters, the surviving crew of the Thunderchild stood at attention as General Adams unveiled a memorial plaque. In honor of Admiral James Wilson, Captain Thomas Reed, Dr. Anna Foster, Chief Engineer Olivia Grant, and all those who gave their lives aboard the Thunderchild, he read. They proved the impossible was possible, and in doing so, they saved humanity. The gathered crowd included government officials, military personnel, and civilians, all united in gratitude for the sacrifice made by the Thunderchild's crew. After the ceremony, in a secure laboratory deep beneath the headquarters, scientists worked quietly around a strange device. It was a replica of Dr. Foster's dimensional core, built from the data transmitted by the Thunderchild before its final mission. "The dimensional principles are sound," one scientist explained to General Adams. "Foster's work has opened up possibilities we never imagined before. Faster than light travel, unlimited energy, perhaps even communications across vast distances." Adams nodded. "And our defenses. Every ship in the fleet is being retrofitted with absorption shield technology. The Krall will never catch us unprepared again." Across the Earth and its colonies, humanity began to rebuild. The story of the impossible battleship spread, inspiring a new generation of scientists and explorers to push beyond the boundaries of what was thought possible. In distant reaches of space, the remnants of the Krall fleet retreated to their home systems. Their reports spoke of human technology that defied understanding, of one ship that had destroyed their greatest weapon. For the first time in their history of conquest, the Krall feared another species. Nothing was the same. And somewhere, in a dimension adjacent to normal space, something impossible happened. A small pocket of stability formed within the chaos of the dimensional void. Within this pocket, damaged but intact, the forward section of the Thunderchild drifted. On what remained of the bridge, emergency lights cast a dim glow over 2 figures. Admiral Wilson stirred, pulling himself painfully from the wreckage of his chair. Nearby, Captain Reed lay unconscious but breathing. Wilson looked out through the cracked view screen. Instead of stars, strange energies swirled in patterns no human had ever seen before. "Well," he said softly to himself, "I guess we'll need to build another impossible ship. This time, to get us home." He reached for the emergency beacon and activated it, sending its signal not through normal space, but through the dimensional corridors that Dr. Foster had discovered. A signal that perhaps someday someone would detect and understand. The impossible journey was just beginning.